My name is Nafi. I'm currently based in Dubai. I was born and raised between Jordan, Saudi Arabia. I lived in Beirut for a while. I've been working in the technology space for the past 8 years. A lot of experiences, I'd say, working with small companies, big companies. And when it comes to the cultural aspect, or what attracted me to afikra, is that I tend to dive into topics sometimes. And sometimes it happens alone or while I'm speaking to my friends or my social circles. And when I found about afikra, it was a really nice platform to share those ideas, share those topics with people. And as soon as you get in, you get more inspired by different topics people are sharing, or whatever you had in mind. You could start with a small idea and it could snowball to a lot of stuff. So definitely worth doing it. Today, I want to speak about the Arab exhibitions in Jerusalem. Honestly, it wasn't the topic that I was researching. My topic started with another thing that I'm going to also speak about today, but I'm glad I stumbled upon this article. So the article is named Self-Portrait of a Nation, the Arab exhibition in Nadi, Jerusalem, 1931 to 1934. It's published on the research repository of the University of Cambridge, and it won the Brahim Daqqaq Award for Outstanding Essays about Jerusalem, which is launched by the Jerusalem Quarterly. And it was written by Nadi Abusaada. I guess he's currently Dr. Nadi Abusaada as well, since he's a PhD candidate in architecture at the University of Cambridge. I was inspired as well by multiple essays, that he published about Jerusalem or about urbanism in the Arab world, also related to architecture. He's a trust scholar at the Center for Urban Conflicts in the University of Cambridge as well. He also co-founded Arab Urbanism, which is a platform that tackles critical ideas regarding the past, present, and future of cities in the Arab region. It's definitely worth going through it. It's really nice, very rich, and a lot of stuff that you didn't even think about how about urbanism in the Arab world. So, okay. So the first and second Arab exhibitions in Jerusalem took place in July 1933 and April 1934. And in those times, it was a time of direct and violent confrontation between Arabs against Zionists and the British colonialism. And it was basically post-World War I, post-Sykes-Picot, and the geopolitical division that resulted from it. So there was this formative movement where the Palestinians were trying to articulate their national identity and establish national institutions. And that's why they endeavored on starting this exhibition to showcase remarkable agricultural and industrial advancements that were happening with them. And a lot of people or Western agenda can try to picture this advancement as happening because that it was happening because of European colonization, yet it wasn't the direct reflection, or it wasn't a direct result of European colonization. It was genuinely from the Arab population that those advancements came out. So the pan-Arab nature of those exhibitions was also an opportunity to get to stitch those Arab cultures or Arab countries, cities together to exchange the knowledge and expertise. And as you can see on the right, this is an artifact, could be a post stamp about the second Arab exhibition, where you can see Jerusalem is in the middle and you can see multiple Arab cities from it, and they're all linked to it more like a hub and different spokes. So you have Kuwait, Bahrain, Muscat, Hadramaut in Yemen, Hijaz in Saudi Arabia. I'm not sure what the reef means, but it could be something in Syria, Tunis, Tripoli, Marrakesh. So when they actually, so the idea of exhibitions wasn't something that was inspired in the Arab world, of course. In the first exhibition was named the Great Fair in London, and it happened in 1851. Yet with the nature of colonialism back in those days, So the biggest exhibitions happened in London and Paris. And the nature of those exhibitions would be where the colonialist states would have a big pavilion. And inside this pavilion, you'd have small booths or kiosks for the colonial cities, for the colonized countries, sorry, or cities. So you'd go, for example, in Britain, you'd find something about Jordan, you'd find about Iraq, you'd find about Palestine. If you go to France, you'd see Syria, you'd see Lebanon. Yet when it comes to inside the English or the British pavilion, and when you go into Palestine, there was this religious symbolism that comes with Jerusalem. So Jerusalem was articulated or showcased as the biblical Holy Land, yet it was also a way for the Zionist movement to try to push for their colonies, their factories, their architectural models, along with Jerusalem, to somehow also benefit from the religious symbolism and the weightage that it had that it had in the pavilion. And the gentleman named Isa al-Isa, which was a leading Palestinian journalist, came up with the idea of having an Arab exhibition after visiting the Paris colonial exhibition. And he had this in mind, and it started as a small idea. He went back to Palestine, he started lobbying for it, he started speaking to a lot of people. And what he had in mind is that one exhibition is capable of achieving over a few days what politics have failed to deliver over a lot of years. So he also visited another exhibition that happened in Iraq. That's why I'm not sure if the ones that happened in Jerusalem are the first exhibitions, but there was an exhibition in Iraq. It was more agricultural and industrial. I guess the one in Jerusalem also had like cultural aspects. And when he saw that happening in Baghdad, he started pushing for it more and more in Jerusalem, and he was a bit supported by the Iraqis. So he started by getting into like people or the corporate elites, I'd say, in Palestine, and he was able to basically build like a private shareholder corporation that had people coming from the Arab Bank, the current Arab Bank in Jordan. So he was the managing director. Ahmed Hilmi Pasha was a president, Hamdi Nabulsi was a VP, and it also had the support of the Arab Bank to basically be able to financially manage and get the financial experience that the bank has so that they can execute the exhibition. And the exhibition was also in a response for an exhibition happening in Tel Aviv. Back then, it was still new in 1932. And the Zionists were doing the Levant Fair, which was also their way of exhibiting their advancements in agriculture, industry, manufacturing, and the cultural aspect. So initially, they wanted to have this exhibition in Jaffa, because of the proximity to the Levant Fair. So it was they were very close to each other, and they wanted to do it in Jaffa. And a community of representatives from the exhibition were selected to negotiate with the municipality of Jaffa. And of course, the municipality or the dominant rule there was British. So they proposed this to the commission and the municipality to approve the plans. Yet it was rejected because it excluded the Jewish population of Palestine. And since they were rejected, they weren't able to get any municipal financial support to start this exhibition. So they decided that let's move this to Jerusalem. It was very controversial to move it to Jerusalem because basically Jaffa had a port or was even close to other ports, and it was more of a lively city, and it was a port, and there were people coming easier from all over the world. And the organizers then also relied heavily on private shareholders for funding, and they also struggled to get sufficient funds. Yet as soon as they progressed and they wanted to launch the exhibition, they thought that the stakes of executing it with a minimal budget were far less than not executing it at all. So they had to do it. And in Jerusalem, there was a newly launched hotel named the Palace Hotel, which was a lavish 200-room hotel was built by the Supreme Muslim Council in 11 months. And actually, this is the hotel. The hotel is where I wanted to start my research. So I'm going to speak about it more in a bit, but it's a beautiful building. And when I started reading more about the building, I got into the story or the art, Nadi's article of how those exhibitions happened in the hotel. And that's how I stumbled upon like Arab exhibitions out of the hotels. So a first for Arab exhibitions too was that there was a young Palestinian female artist named Zulfa Saadi, and she exhibited a range of her works in the exhibition. And excuse me, sorry. And that was a first in the Arab world because it was a solo exhibition by a Palestinian painter, where back then, like this form of art wasn't not tolerated, but it wasn't deemed worthy to represent natural culture. So it was a first, and she was even endorsed by Kamal Balluta, which is a great Palestinian late Palestinian artist. And as you can see on the right, those are the pictures of the hotel. This is another picture of the hotel where everyone was like standing outside and they wanted to get into the exhibition. So basically they did the first exhibition and the second exhibition. They wanted to go for a third one, yet because of a lot of financial barriers, they weren't able to get the funds to start a third one. The Iraqis wanted to help and get the exhibition into Baghdad, but all of those future plans faded and didn't work out. So this is everything about the first and second Arab exhibitions. And those are pictures of the Palace Hotel, which was built in 1929. It had 200 rooms, central heating. It was super luxurious. It was the British mandate took the building and they had a commission there. And then post 1948, the Zionists and Israel took it, and it became the Israeli Ministry of Trade and Industry until 2003, where it became the Waldorf Astoria. And when it became the Waldorf Astoria, it was purchased by a Canadian Jewish businessman, and he renovated it, and they had an extension to the building, and it's beautiful. And on the facade, you can see on the top that there's an Arabic saying there's an Arabic saying مثل ما بنى آباؤنا وفعلوا نبني ونفعل بني هذا النزل المجلس الإسلامي الأعلى بفلسطين عام 1929. One last shout out is that I was inspired to do everything on this topic by a gentleman named Tariq Bakri. He's a Palestinian researcher that documents stories through visual documentation. So he'd find a building in Palestine, and he'd trace back to its roots of who built it, who was living there, and and he'd even go to those buildings up until this day and knock on the people living there and trying to get even more out of it. And that's a wrap. Thank you.
وسلام عليك يا بابا سيدي منصور يا بابا يجيك نزور يا بابا سيدي منصور يا بابا